Tuesday, November 25th, 2014. Roll call.
Dickman here.
Johnston here.
Carrillo here.
Feedy here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Item 2 is minutes of the November 11th, 2014 meeting.
Mr. Dickman makes a motion that we approve the minutes of the November 11th, 2014 meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Feedy, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Item 3 is significant common council actions. Carrie.
Council approved a resolution approving CSMs for the properties at 324 East Forest Hill Avenue, 400 East Lily Drive, and 8870 South Mayhew Drive. Also approved a resolution to add territory to TIF number 11 and to amend the project plan for TIF number 11. Also approved a resolution approving TID number 11 term sheet between the City of Oak Creek and Barrett Visionary Properties. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Moving to old business, 4A is a clarification of action. It's from a vote November 11, 2014 meeting regarding the preliminary plat submitted by Midwest Development Corp. for the Oakfield Village Addition Number 2 located at 324 East Forest Hill Avenue and 400 East Lily Drive. Tax key numbers as listed.
So this is just a clarification due to an error in the motion language that was, I apologize, that was my fault. As the mayor said at the November 11th meeting, the Plan Commission reviewed a preliminary plat submitted by Steve Mark, Lily Drive Developments, for the Oakfield Village Addition Number 2. The motion was made by Commissioner Johnston that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the preliminary plat submitted by Steve Mark for the properties at 324 East Forest Hill Avenue and 400 East Lily Drive be approved, with the condition that comments from the water and sewer utility are incorporated as required. And the motion was passed unanimously by all commissioners present. The clarification is that the Common Council doesn't actually approve preliminary plats, only final plats. Therefore, the appropriate action for the Plan Commission would be to restate the motion and verify the action taken at the November 11th meeting. The recommended motion is that the Plan Commission approves the preliminary plat submitted by Steve Mark for the properties at 324 East Forest Hill Avenue and 400 East Lily Drive, with the condition that comments from the water and sewer utility are incorporated as required.
Johnston concurs with that.
Just need a second then?
Yes.
Guzikowski will second.
Guzikowski seconds. Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Scafidi, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 4B is a site plan review for a site and building plan submitted by Kurt Moss, Moss Excavating and Trucking for a salt storage shed on the property at 380 West Ryan Road. Tax key number as listed.
This item was held at the November 11th meeting to allow the applicant to provide additional time to provide requested information. We are talking about the property that is highlighted in red on your screen. The request is for a salt storage shed on the property. If I can get my pointer out. Well, anyway. The location is, thank you. Location is highlighted there. It is, you can, oh sure, now it's not going to work. Okay, well, anyway, it's off of Ryan Road. And this is a hand drawing showing exactly where the proposed salt shed is going to be off of Ryan Road. It will be behind the existing house on the property. There was a grading plan that was submitted. There we go. This is Ryan Road right here. There was a grading plan that was submitted. Stormwater appears to be okay as long as the entrance to the structure is constructed such that salt will not be exposed to the elements and water cannot seep into the structure. And here's an image from Ryan Road as you are traveling eastbound and looking to your right. This is the proposed location for the storage shed. An idea of what the dome would look like, or the roof. And this is an example of the type of structure that we're talking about. Staff has mentioned some concerns that the proposed building materials do not meet code requirements. However, the Plan Commission is comfortable with the proposed building. A 3/4 majority will be needed for approval. Section 17.1010 also requires landscaping for new buildings. However, like the building material requirements, the Plan Commission may modify those requirements with a 3/4 majority. So it will be at the Plan Commission's discretion whether additional landscaping or screening will be required for the proposed storage building. Per the terms of approval for the use on this property, a detailed site plan is required showing all existing buildings and active storage areas on the property, and staff has been working with the applicant to fulfill this requirement. And in fact, I have a couple of examples here for the applicant if he would like to take them. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Kurt Moss, Excavating and Trucking, for the property at 380 West Ryan Road with conditions to be determined by the Plan Commission at time of review. Mr. Mayor.
And the applicant, Kurt Moss, is in the audience if anyone has questions. So we have an existing business, been here since 85, roughly, 87. Generally, a lot of equipment out on the site. It's, if I remember right, it drops down, the elevation drops significantly from Ryan down into the back of your property, a couple outbuildings, lots of trucks, lots of vehicles, lots of other equipment. And why don't you come up to the mic? What, primarily, are you going to use the salt for what, other than melting things? Other than the obvious?
The salt is just used for,
Is this on your property or?
no, this
Okay.
is for customers.
Okay.
We plow snow and salt in the winter.
Okay, so that's part of your business as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I noticed you submitted a pretty rough landscaping plan. Basically, your idea is to screen it with some evergreen trees so that whatever is visible is not visible once those trees are planted.
Correct. Trees on the move would bring in 3 large trees.
And before I forget, name and address for the record.
Kurt Moss, 2132 West Oakwood Road.
Okay, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I think, given your property, given the kind of business you do, the fact that it's essentially invisible from Ryan Road, I don't see what the concern is. I think you've addressed staff concern that was brought up in the last couple of weeks. Definitely think you should do whatever you can to hide whatever is visible, because I know those aren't very good-looking buildings, but it certainly will serve your purpose. At this point, I'll open it up to the commission for questions. Commissioner Chandler?
What is customary for salt storage?
What do you mean? What?
Customary is kind of a nebulous term, if you will. There are some areas that have buildings. There are some areas that have bunkers. I can't put my finger on an example of one that has a dome like this other than the temporary use that was approved last week, or sorry, 2 weeks ago. So as far as a dome like this, that's a permanent structure, I just don't have an example of that for you, but there are different ways that, different structures for salt storage. So there isn't one particular standard, if you will.
Okay. And the material being used is acceptable?
With a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission.
Okay.
Commissioner Siepert?
Question I have is, do we have a time limit, how long you can store that on the property? I thought we did that a couple weeks ago, that we had a period of time.
The difference between this application and the application 2 weeks ago is that the application 2 weeks ago was specifically for a temporary use. This is for a permanent use.
So this is year-round.
Well, hopefully the salt will be used up this winter. We won't store anything in there during the summer, fall, when salt's available, and hopefully a cheaper price. And we're not, we're not a large contractor. Normally, I would buy salt 1 truck at a time. In the past, I used to buy 2,000-pound bags and keep them in our building, just because the convenience was nice to have them in a heated building. Now, last year and this year, because of the salt shortage, just like the concrete shortage, prices have gone up, and you had to take what you could get. Hopefully it lasts for the winter.
When you're finished with the salt, will you use this facility for anything else, for storage of equipment or
If
other things?
that really, it's going to have an asphalt base, so to park anything on there long-term is not good. So it would be empty for the rest of the year.
So it's strictly for storing salt?
Just to cover the salt pile.
Commissioner Dickman?
Carrie, is for you. They did submit this extra plan here with the evergreen trees to provide screening for that. Does that automatically fall under when we say we approve the site plan, or how does this get into our package officially?
The commission can approve it as part of this, as part of the motion for this agenda item, or you can designate staff to approve it.
Okay.
What was the last piece?
Designate staff to approve it.
Approve it, okay. Good.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carrillo? Sorry.
You answered my question.
Commissioner Chandler?
Can you give us more details about the landscaping and screening?
We talked to Trees on the Move, and they generated the small grading or landscape plan where they'd bring in probably 8 to 10 foot evergreens and put them across the front of the building.
And just 3? That's what we see on the,
Yeah. The building right now would be actually 8 feet below the road.
okay.
So the top of the building would be no higher than a normal 2-car garage.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, motion on 4B.
Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission approve the site plan with the addition of the evergreen trees as landscaping and building plans submitted by Kurt Moss Excavating and Trucking for the property at 380 West Ryan Road with conditions to be determined by the Plan Commission at the time of review.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Wait,
Yeah, I think
one
we're-
second.
Got to drop that last.
Yeah,
part.
that last part is really for the commission to designate any conditions as you see fit.
Yeah,
That
I
was,
think- Yeah, I
that was
agree
a
with you.
general term, so
Yeah.
that would be up for discussion.
Any additional conditions you want to put into the motion?
I think we did with the trees.
The only recommendation that I would have would be to include the site plan that highlights the existing buildings and outdoor storage areas on the property, and that was required in a separate ordinance, so I can provide the examples and work with the applicant.
Okay.
So should we change the motion and drop the conditions determined? We'll just
Right.
drop that part from the motion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we need a second then.
Carrillo, second.
Carrillo seconds. Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
VDI.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, get your salt shed up, get your salt ordered if you already haven't done that. Moving on, 5A, new business, a rezone submittal by Timothy Wallen, MLG PF Oak Creek LLC, to rezone a portion of the properties at 3110, 3260, 3300 East Elm Road from A1 agricultural to RS2 single-family residential, tax key numbers as listed. Gary.
With the proximity to my property, Carrillo's going to recuse herself from this vote.
Okay. Sounds appropriate. Now to Carrie.
Okay, so this is a rezone application in anticipation of a residential subdivision on the property in the area highlighted in red. Actually, that's the entirety of the properties that are affected here. But only portions of the property are included in the rezone request, as this would be a phased subdivision. So the area that is hatched here, or the dotted line, is the extent of the rezone request at this time. Applicants have also submitted a conceptual subdivision plan for that area. It shows 15 building lots and 1 outlot for wetland and stormwater detention. According to the land use map and the comprehensive plan, this area has been identified for single-family residential development with pockets of resource protection. The resource protection has to do with the presence of wetlands and floodplain on the entirety of the properties, portions of the entire properties, rather. The submitted conceptual subdivision plan and RS2 zoning designation are consistent with the land use map in the comprehensive plan. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the proposed rezone request. Comments have been submitted by the neighbors and were provided to the Plan Commissioners prior to this meeting. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that portions of the properties at 3110, 3260, and 3300 East Elm Road be rezoned from A1 agricultural to RS2 single-family residential after a public hearing. Mr. Mayor.
And one of the residents had a short PowerPoint they wanted to do. You have that, correct?
Yes.
So at this time, I'll have you come up, try to keep it as brief as possible, walk us through your slides, and we'll comment afterwards.
Give me just a minute to navigate.
My name is Doug Krimmer, 3170 East Lindy Lane. I'm a vice president in Oakwood Lake Homeowners Association, and I will be presenting tonight our position statement related to the proposed rezoning to the Elm Road property. The Oakwood Lake Estates neighborhood is opposed to rezoning as the conceptual is planned. We have two main reasons that we would like to see this rethought and continue to be discussed. One is safety and connectivity to our neighborhood, and the other is stormwater and flood coming from the said property. So we have issues with safety, traffic, stormwater drainage, and their phase definition that they proposed and related to their future site. Safety. Oakwood Lake Estates has no sidewalks. We have no street lights. We have over 100 minors. We have a circular layout which creates reduced vision areas. We have deep culverts, and when you have people parking on the road, it creates a single lane with which cars can get through. We did have an accident in 2006 where a bus had to bail out and drop down into one of the culverts as they were coming around a corner to avoid hitting another resident. So our stance, because of the safety, is that we already have safety issues in our neighborhood. Connecting any more lots to our neighborhood would only make things worse. We also have a house whose driveway is directly across Ricky Lane. So if we approve this plan as proposed, that person will have to basically back into an intersection in order to get in and out of their home. We currently have 83 houses. Residents will have to, for this new proposed subdivision, we'll have to travel through our subdivision to get to school, grocery shopping, gas, shopping, everywhere, freeway. This is a 20% increase, so this isn't just a minor increase. This is a 20% increase of homes. What we would like to do is we had a planning commission in April of 2009 that they voted for a connection with the previous owner of this development. We would like to honor that common council vote, and because it satisfied the developer at the time, as well as Oakwood Lake Estates Homeowners Association, as well, and engineering. So we worked with all three. We had meetings outside. We went and tried to be involved.
One question, you said 2009, that says 2008, and you said...
It was 2008.
You said Common Council, and that says Plan Commission, so
we vote, well...
Which one was it?
I have meeting, we were here, we presented at both the Planning Commission and the Common Council.
Okay.
4/15/2008 was when Common Council did vote on it. I file an open meeting request, or open file request, so that I can get the meeting minutes. I was unable to get it before this meeting.
Okay.
Point Real Estate, their proposal, if they reverse their direction and mimic the Belinsky and proposal, they will have a cul-de-sac which tangents Ricky Lake. They can pitch their whole development away from our subdivision to Elm Road where the drainage should be going. They can still, with that altered proposal, access the water and sewer that they would like off of Ricky Lane that is there. There already is a construction road as a part of their plan in order to develop these 15 lots, so it would be a minimal cost for them to just open that road up a little bit more and make that the entryway. And it will also be for future phases. So we think that that's a viable solution. The tangential connection honors neighborhood interface that the Common Council approved without adversely impacting developer. Belinsky Homes felt satisfied after that. They had a plan that they were going to develop it with that cul-de-sac. Unfortunately, the market dropped out, and then the property has changed hands. Stormwater plan. We have a significant water problem on south side of Oak Creek. I'm hoping that all of you are aware of that. Our subdivision as built does not adhere to the drainage plans that are filed within the city. The detention pond is supposed to drain out from our 83 homes, but for most of the year it actually comes in. we have videos and pictures that we could share if you would like to substantiate that.
Hold on one second. I have the assistant city engineer. Can you speak to that one?
It functions exactly how it's designed to. That pond was designed, and the stormwater report shows it is supposed to accept the tailwater from the Root River. So the water is supposed to flow into that pond and flood ends. Exactly like it does.
The plans show the connection to be level.
Yes,
Were those as designed or as built?
those are as designed.
I don't know. Okay.
You can go ahead.
The assessor's office considers Oakwood Lake Estates to have lakefront property, even though the detention pond is just a backwash of the river. So that's part of our animosity, is that we are considered to be lakefront property, and we pay the taxes that come along with that designation, but yet it's just a detention pond, and we get everything from Oakwood that comes in. We've attempted to work with the city. We haven't had resolution. We've had some ups and downs there, but we continue to try and work with that, Brian, and I hope that we can continue to come up with something to help us with our issues. The proposed development is pitched towards our property, all 15 lots, and that water will migrate into the pond. There is curb and gutter in this proposed development that is pitched right towards our subdivision. Will go into our culverts and right into the pond. Our pond is already overloaded. When we have rainfall, we can handle what the 83 houses bring in, but we also are taking in from Willows up towards Deerfield and everything from Oakwood. The proposed lots are located where there's standing water, Earl All Spring, there's standing water in there. So all of that water that you'll see in pictures coming up will be into our pond. So the proposed development has future grading plans, but they did not share that with us when we tried to meet with them. So we did not see any of their future plans. Sharing the complete plan would be consistent with previous developers. Belinsky came into the Planning Commission with a complete plan for the property. They had 4 phases. We went through the whole process of working together, came up with an amicable plan, and that's what we went with. We were verbally informed that significant dumping of fill will occur to raise the rest of the property for a road. The proposal does not include a planned unit development conditions and restrictions, which I believe is a requirement for preliminary plat. Development of property affects more residents than were notified for this meeting. This will in fact affect residents of Shangri-La, as well as people all along Oakwood Road. Here's a picture. This is a typical spring day. You can see the water wraps. There's a tree line that goes to the left. It actually wraps around and goes back into that property. You can notice there's water to the right. It's all the way up to the transformer box in the backyard.
Do you know when that picture was taken?
That picture was taken
April of 2013.
April.
Yeah.
And we have residents for more. This property is Oakwood Road as it stands at the same time frame. It's 3371 Oakwood Road. This is the first house that's outside of our subdivision. This is the culvert that the stormwater will go into. And the next picture shows how close it gets. Now this isn't, a 3-inch rainfall. This is just a spring watershed. So our position is that the property as a whole should have grading and drainage plan before proceeding with rezoning for the PUD. The proposal should include conditions and restrictions as is customary with previous developers for this property. We would like drainage to be, on this plan, to be directed towards Elm Road and should stay that way. Resolve the issue. If there's issues on Elm, then that should be addressed on Elm and not, the problem should be pushed to Oakwood and brought into other people's problems. So, and we feel that it's disingenuous that they did not include other residents that are outside this property.
Thanks for your presentation.
Any other questions? No?
Actually, put that last slide up. I'm going to ask Carrie some questions. Carrie, is it your understanding that the proposal to rezone should include a grading and drainage plan?
The rezone affects just whether or not the property should be changed from A1 to RS2. We do not require grading plans for a rezone at this time. Also, it is not a PUD that is being requested at this time, so there would not be conditions and restrictions as part of this part. The standard RS2 zoning is what is being requested.
For the piece about the residents, who was notified and was it based on our standards that we typically do for notification?
The code requires us to notify all residents within 300 feet of the proposal.
I'm guessing the answer on the last one, Brian, would be when you're building a neighborhood, you're going to have some clean fill come in to raise the road bed?
Yes, you would.
Okay. And then the piece about drainage, so that addition to, or not, I guess it's not an addition, whatever they're calling this development proposal, that water is coming back into the Oakwood Estates neighborhood, at least as designed?
We haven't seen final design yet.
You don't know that answer?
Don't know yet. I do know that Oakwood Lakes, when it was developed, it did block the drainage that originally occurred there in the 60s that drained out to Oakwood Road. That's why the water backs up along the south side of those properties, because all that drainage did flow to the north.
And you installed culverts on the north sides of properties along in Oakwood Lake Estates.
Not on the south property line of Oakwood Lakes. That's just a berm that comes up there that impeded the
South-
flow
Okay, I thought you were talking.
along that. That's why that water berms up.
No, yeah, there is. There's a culvert with, it's on their plan even. It shows on there.
The development plan now is anticipated to have a stormwater detention pond that'll take the water from their development through that pond, not discharging everything into the existing Oakwood Lakes pond. That water would then go to the east and bypass the development.
Brian, I would really like to invite you to come out. We could, in 5 minutes, I could show you how the culvert that is in the back of the properties on the south side of Oakwood Lake Estates, the wetlands are at my chest when I stand down in there. And there is a discharge that goes direct from that culvert directly into the pond. I looked at it.
Okay.
I'd also like to, since Carrie said there wasn't, in the technical requirements for plat and surveys, section 14.80, -A-5, the entire area, it states that where subdivider owns and controls adjacent lands in addition to those proposed for development at the time shall submit a concept plan for the development of the adjacent lands showing streets, utilities, zoning districts, and other information that may affect or review the preliminary plat in question. So I don't believe that they've sufficiently provided that information for the preliminary.
Well, let me just answer that right now. They haven't actually applied for any of that. Right now, they're only applying for rezoning of the property. They haven't submitted any of the technical information because they haven't applied for that yet. This is only to see whether or not the Plan Commission feels that it could be rezoned for residential development. They would have to come back and submit all of that information once they got a determination from the Plan Commission, if the Plan Commission chose to approve of their request for a rezone. So there would be subsequent steps to this process.
To simplify, is essentially the Plan Commission saying this area is appropriate for residential development?
That is what you're being asked to rule on.
And not to take lightly any of the things that you presented tonight and that you talked about with me when we met at 4 o'clock, but a lot of those concerns are what would take place at the next step of the process, when they actually had a development plan that would address some of the things you're talking about where the water goes, talking about what the lots do, how they connect, if they connect to your neighborhood, those types of things. This is really for our purview. It's already been, that precedent's been established because Bolinski established it, right, in an early discussion. Now, that's not the developer now, but I think council and Plan Commission previously have said that is an area that they see that is right for residential development.
We're not disagreeing.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you
Our
are.
disagreement is based on the connectivity of the proposed
Right.
neighborhood, as well as the impact that proposed neighborhood will have to ours related to drainage and stormwater.
Absolutely.
And-
as I said this afternoon, those are probably
So then,
More
let me
appropriately
understand
discussed
then
at the
what they
next
are. They're asking for rezoning. Then they're going to come back to Planning Commission to ask for,
then the development will actually be laid out when you can actually,
when we met with the developer, they made it sound like they were going right from tonight to vote to Common Council. So that was That was our understanding.
No, there's additional steps that need to come back before the Plan Commission. So while the time frame may actually be elongated from that, the steps are Plan Commission approval and then Common Council approval for this particular request. And then it would come back for subsequent review of the development itself, which would include all of the details.
In light of the things, since we did go through a presentation, that we, if you agree with the things that we've brought forth today, that there's obvious lack of some things that need to be discussed, and I would say that now would be the time to discuss that, not after.
Well, we have discussed it.
That's
but
my
I'm-
personal opinion.
Yeah, we have discussed it, but I'm telling you, for our purposes tonight, this is really a specific ask on a rezone from agricultural to residential, which again, previous plan commissions and previous common councils and leadership, both electeds and staff, have said is an appropriate use of that Elm Road to south border of Oakwood Estates property.
The specificity of their development with their plat layouts that they have, if there's really not any room to change that, they would have to come back and ask for rezoning and change those boundaries. Would they have to do that without, or would, if they wanted to bump one of their lots out by 50 foot, would they have to come back and ask for rezoning of that extra 50 foot?
What they've asked for, and if I could just bring that up again, they've asked for a specific area to be rezoned. So the area that has the area that is outlined right here has a legal description attached to it. If they decide to move the boundaries, they would have to come back and ask for the Plan Commission to approve of the change to the boundary. But this is all that they are rezoning, they're asking for a rezone of right now. So this,
And
if
that's why
this
I'm-
changes, it would have to get approval again. But again, the design for this would also have to come back before the Plan Commission.
But with this design, that's the only option that they can come with. And that's where I'm saying with the issues that I brought forth, this really pigeonholes to the development looking exactly like this. Whereas, we have issues. We would like to work with the developers and come up with a plan that probably would move those boundaries. So, we would like to have, that's why I think that you should postpone this and let some further discussions happen between engineering, Oakwood Lake Estates, and the developer.
Well, I could say that, this shows a potential layout. It would be a maximum build-out for this particular area. They could come back very well and say, you know what, we've looked at this and we've decided we're going to put in fewer lots. That could be the case. But the change to the exterior boundary of where they're asking for lots to be could change, would not change unless they want to come back and get additional approvals.
One last thing I'd like to bring up, and then I apologize, and I'll let other people speak. But in your report, is this your report, Carrie, that you,
The staff report, yes.
staff report? I guess I would like to take exception that where you state that concerns raised by neighborhood residents, that this plan would alleviate those. Obviously, you have a number of people here that disagree with that statement, so I would ask that be.
I'm sorry, I don't know what portion of the report
Your
you're
second
discussing.
paragraph, the development is proposed to be a cul-de-sac extension of Ricky Drive. Prior development plan showed Ricky Drive as a through connection road, which the final design did not, connecting with Oakwood Lake Estates, which raised concerns with the neighborhood residents. Developing the cul-de-sac lots per the same standards as Oakwood Lake Estates and incorporating the dead-end road into the design will help alleviate the past concerns of the neighbors and.
Hold on one second.
I'm sorry, that was
That's not what-
actually, that was a development general summary that was provided by the applicant. I thought you were talking about
okay.
my staff report.
I thought.
No,
there's-
that's
There's no
actually
name on the bottom
information.
of this, I apologize.
That's information provided by
So
the
the record should reflect that that's not the staff report.
Okay,
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem.
It wasn't labeled properly. So I guess I take exception to that, that paragraph written by
With the developer, you take
with the
exception.
developer.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Come on up. Name and address for the record.
Sure, my name is Kelly Gerke, and I live at 3173 East Lindy Lane, which is right off of Ricky Drive. You had said there is no drainage ditch, Mr. Johnson, by our house, in the back of that?
No,
There is a drainage ditch, and I've even been threatened by the city when I asked them to come and look at the water because it's up to my waist and it covers the electrical box. And you had threatened, or the people at the office had threatened me, saying they would have to rip up my whole backyard in order to find that drainage ditch, and that there was one there, and it was in the plan.
not that there's not a drainage ditch, but that the subdivision blocked the original drainage that came through there.
Well, you
That whole
can-
area was a wetland back in the 60s.
Well, there is a ditch back there, and there's supposed to be a graded area where that water should go through, and it doesn't. And I'm worried sometimes about the children's safety, and I also did not like personally the threat that my yard was going to be ripped up to find it, especially after we put all this grass in. The second thing is, I'm also concerned about the traffic off of Ricky Drive. You have not mentioned, this subdivision is going to be zoned in that area, but you have not mentioned how it would go across to Elmwood, or Elm. You just mentioned that it's going to come off of my road and go right on inside, and everybody's going to be passing my house. I couldn't even put a garage to come off of Ricky Drive, but you want to put cars coming off of Ricky Drive. We had to arrange our whole house plan so we couldn't have our garage off to the side of Ricky Drive. They said they would never use that road. That's what they told us.
Okay. I apologize you felt threatened by someone.
Yeah, it was. It was like to not, we couldn't even, didn't even want to call and tell them anymore about the water problems in the back of our yard.
Just a quick show of hands in the audience. How many people in the audience feel that there should be no residential development south of Oakwood Estates? Okay, so I just wanted to get a sense for where we were at. To the developer, how many lots are you proposing if this is what it looks like? You have to come up to the mic. Commissioner Chandler, you'd be next. I probably should have brought you up a little earlier, sorry.
No problem. Joe Bukovic with Point Real Estate, representing the developer, 13400 Bishops Lane, Brookfield, Wisconsin. For this proposal, the number of lots we're proposing is 15 lots on a dead-end cul-de-sac attaching to Ricky Drive. Anything else on the land south of that would enter and exit onto Elm Road.
Okay, did you have some comments you wanted to make?
Sure, if now is appropriate.
Sure.
I basically just wanted to talk over the reasoning behind our decision to come forward with the cul-de-sac off of Ricky Drive. And we looked at the neighborhood to the north, so we're coming with a proposal to go with a straight RS2 zoning, which is the same zoning that the neighbors to the north have. We have 17,000 square foot minimum lots, 100 foot width, and looking at reviewing some of the covenants, reviewing the some of the pictures of the sites, we're able to make the developments the exact same. Talking with staff, we realized that there was some issues with through traffic, and traffic was an issue. So what we're proposing is a permanent solution to not having any additional traffic except for these 15 lots that are being added to the development. The reason for doing this 15 lots subdivision here instead of doing the whole layout is basically the whole economy that we've experienced for the last 5 to 10 years, where lot sales are starting to pick up. They've picked up over the last few years, but that's at prices that are being liquidated by banks. So now that some of those are being used up, the development community is starting to develop again. There are a handful of communities throughout the southeastern Wisconsin that were developed this year, more are planned for next year. But you still have the expectation that the lot pricing is still low where it's at. So we have to find property at a price point that people are willing to pay based on last year's, the year before, and the year before that's pricing. And the way to do that is to find a property that can be developed inexpensively without significant off-site cost, which is what Ricky Drive has. They have sewer and water to the property line, and then we just have your standard development costs with the sewer, the water, the grading, the storm water, and that kind of stuff. Just to give you an idea of what the market's like, and then it's strictly the reason why we did this was just strictly market-driven. Over the last year, 12 months from today, there were 8 properties sold less than a half acre in size in the city of Franklin. and they range from 45,000 to 83,900. These are actual sales. And there's an average price of 68,600. So we have to be in that range. New development is always going to be a little bit more than stuff that's been on the market. Lots that are still out there are the last ones to sell, so they may not be as good as some of your better lots in a new development. So our costs that we can absorb and prices that we could charge are slightly higher than that. The pricing from 2 years ago, the average was 74.6. Currently, there's 21 properties listed on the market, which, again, up to the half acre in size, and they range from 28.9 to 148.5, with an average of 93,200. So that kind of gives you a range from 80 to 90,000, which is what the market will bear. And there's probably some shadow product out there owned by builders. This is all MLS information. So there's probably 40 to 50 lots that are available in the City of Elk Creek. So there is a need for some new development of lots. And we need to produce those at a price that the market's willing to bear. So based on the absorption, there's probably 2 to 3 years worth of absorption on the property. We worked with M&I Bank, who own the property, who our developer purchased it from. And as an independent company, we analyzed the development for what it would cost to develop without any interest of developing at that point. And based on the Belinsky site plan and their engineering plans, which we were able to get from them, and the cost for just the hard infrastructure, the grading, the sewer, the water, the roads, was $52,000 a lot. And if you look at that, if your sale price is 80 to 90,000, you throw in engineering, carry, inspection, landscaping, it just doesn't make any sense. And the reason that number is so high was because some of the off-site utilities that have to be put in the future phases. And the future phases that we're proposing, we have to wait really, that cost is still going to be the cost. Can we do some things to make it lower? Yeah, possibly. But we have to wait for the market to come back before we come forward with any new development is achieved south of this phase that we're proposing right here. So that's really the background for why we're proposing just this cul-de-sac at this point. And
Why this orientation? Why Ricky going west, why not Ricky going east as part of your cul-de-sac? Because I was out there, and it is wet that way.
right, two things on that is we do have some hand sketches that we prepared for the area to the south, where we kind of overlaid and we showed you guys that. And this is a way that it fits in best with a conceptual plan for layout to the south. Okay. And we have had this area delineated. The wetlands were delineated late September, early October. November 7th, the DNR was out there and they concurred with the wetland delineation. So we're set with what's there for water. I do want to show you one other thing too, if I may. And I apologize if the rest of the audience can't see this. This is a pre-development watershed that was prepared by Belinsky years ago. That shows 9.8 acres, very similar to what we're proposing, that flows to the north. Flows into a catch basin, flows between the lots and into the pond. City ordinance, stormwater requirements, we're taking the same amount of land area to the north. All the rest of the water is going to go to the south. You guys see that? That's what I'm talking about. This whole area drains to the north. If you look at our site plan, that's very similar. 9.8 acres goes to the north. Our proposed rezoning is 9.75 acres.
Brian, is there any reason why that has to drain into the pond?
It's not planned to with this development.
Right, but he's saying that was the original plan.
The original plan, the original stormwater report shows that water going into the
Right.
pond.
So Belinsky showed that.
Belinsky showed that,
Okay.
and the development for Oakwood Lake showed that.
Right.
In terms of safety, I did a little checking into that too. And the facilities design manual for the state of Wisconsin, which is based, all roads are based off that design. Chapter 11, it talks about this is the standard and guidelines for all highways and streets being designed by Wisconsin DOT. The design information presented is based on primary policy standards and specifications adopted by AASHTO, which is federal. And it goes on to say that safety is a prime consideration in the development of all designs. So if you go in further into Chapter 11, Section 11-15, it talks about the local roads on level terrain, which is basically what we have. They don't design them for as low as the speed limit as what we have, but if we do the design speed of 60 mile an hour for a local road, the roadway width is 20 to 22 feet. The city standard is 24-foot width of pavement, and they also called for 2 to 4 foot shoulders, which the city has in their standard. So this is a city standard, or the state standard, federal standard. The city adopted it, and this is based on, again, safety of individuals. Anytime you put cars and pedestrians together, there's always a possibility. I checked with the Transportation and Safety Commission for the city, and they said they haven't had any concurring or reoccurring big issues with any safety out here. And adding 15 more lots to this isn't going to push an unsafe condition or a safe condition to an unsafe condition.
Who said that?
That was the city engineer, city traffic engineer.
Matt Sullivan?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Chandler?
With the concerns of the residents, were you aware of this list?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and,
I was made aware of it yesterday afternoon. I received it from planning.
oh, so that was the first time you saw it?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, so I guess the question is, are you open to evaluating some of their concerns? Because what I'm hearing is that there are quite a bit of concerns depending on what transpires in that area. So I think they're just making sure that you hear what they're saying and take that in consideration.
We will work with them if they want to meet, if we can meet, and if we can come to an agreement, we certainly will.
Okay.
If the commission decides to rezone the property,
Yeah.
I guess the question is, will you be willing to work with Oakwood Estates to make sure that this smaller development does not impact their quality of life?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Siebert?
I have a question for the fire department. How many lots can you have on a dead-end road or a cul-de-sac that's?
That's Carrie. Carrie, you have that. Is it 15?
Yeah, we actually have a code requirement that it's a maximum of 15 lots.
Yep.
Okay, then I look at this drawing, and I'm looking at these two lots. Is that part of that, even though it's not part of development, but wouldn't that be part of the complete layout of this cul-de-sac? And so that would make it 17?
What's the definition of a cul-de-sac? Those two properties that are on Lindy and Ricky, those two, do they count as part of that cul-de-sac?
It depends on whether or not they have access, but I think the issue is that we're actually getting into details of a conceptual layout here, and I very much understand and sympathize with the concerns that have been raised here, but the actual agenda item, I think we're actually kind of getting away from that
I tried
discussion
to keep
at
us
this
there
point.
earlier. I'm giving there's a lot of residents here. I tried to.
There are, and I do appreciate that.
All right. Anything else, Fred?
No, it's,
Alderman Guzikowski.
Have you guys looked at any other options as far as if bringing in a road off of Elm, for instance, and just abandoning the whole Ricky Drive option?
If we did look at that, we did meet with the association a week ago or so, and they did bring up, okay, what if you bring a road up from Elm to serve this and then not even connect or have the same type of scenario that was proposed with Belinsky? And what ends up happening is if you're going to put a temporary road in, you're going to put in your sewer and water, and that constitutes the offsite costs, which would raise the overall cost to develop this subdivision to a level that's infeasible.
Commissioner Chandler.
I have a question about the other phases. In our documentation, it only speaks of Phase 1, which includes the 15 houses, additional properties. So the other phases, are they also in the same area?
They will be within this property, within the 74 acres. There's only 9.75 acres that we're rezoning right now, and the rest of it would be in all the open areas there. Kind of the hatched areas are wetlands from previous delineations. So the open areas would be where the rest of the development is.
Can you show me the other development? So all of these open areas that we see?
Just be careful on the scope of the questions, because we're really only talking about this specific
Yep.
rezone in that specific area.
Which is the dark?
That dark black line.
Just that one, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he doesn't even have a development plan for that part, and we're asking him questions related to the rest of the property.
Okay.
Just in general, Valinsky did have this laid out. You have a road connection here to Elm, you have a road connection here to Elm. So it's gonna come through, you're gonna have lots on both sides. This is wetland, that's wetland, so it's gonna come down and around. And this, is all gonna be independent of what's coming up here.
The resident had a question. Yeah, come on up.
Hi, Desiree Blake, 3283 East James Drive. I'm not even close to this, but I do have a young daughter who runs around on her bike, and we have problems with our own residents obeying this.
I hear there are a lot of crazy drivers in that neighborhood.
Yeah, well, exactly. So you're adding another 15 homes, two car per house. You're talking a lot of traffic. I mean, we have enough problems with our own residents trying to keep them. We got some teenage drivers that thinking that, they can speed through there.
The Schlitt boys, I've heard about them
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. So, but the other concerns we have is that why do we have to keep going back and forth with this Ricky Drive thing? We already addressed it the first time with Belinsky. We've talked with them, we got everything. They were going to just put a bike path, but they were going to go off of, and I understand it's going to cost you guys a lot of money, but you know what? I don't really care. That's on you. What I care about is the added traffic and the amount of kids, because we don't have sidewalks. If there's a lot of blind spots around there, there's no place for these kids to go except in a ditch. We've already had kids fall in ditches. Nobody knows about it because the parents took care of that. But, and it's not like we're going to call the cops because some kid got pushed in a ditch. But there are incidences that you guys are not aware of. And this in particular is very concerning. We don't have any problem with them building. That's totally cool. Go ahead and build. Just leave Ricky Drive alone. We don't need extra traffic going through our subdivision. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
This is weird.
Yeah, just for the record, Don Carrillo is a member of the Plan Commission.
10413 George Drive. My question is to the developer. Why are you requesting just the change from the agricultural single family in that unique shape and not for the entire? What is the plan, the near plan for the entire area?
If I may, it all boils down to the cost that we discussed before, the $50,000 a lot to improve them, and the sale price of $80,000 to $90,000, which doesn't make sense. So this one we can develop and sell them for a reasonable price, and we have to wait for the remainder of the market to come back to support a higher price for the lots to the south, and that's the full reason why we're not proposing anything else on the south at this point.
Other residents?
Hi, Pat Kitsky, 3071 Lindy Lane. I was glad to hear the developer with his recent comments about lot values, because my contention is the only reason they would not want to put a road to Elm is that in the development, the way they have it laid out, they're going to be able to sell lots at an inflated value, and that value is going to come off of the nice neighborhood that we built. In addition to that, we have liabilities with our pond. I don't know if anyone's addressed that yet. It was said that this is intended to be a multi-phase. What are those phases? If it is going to be multi-phase, why is it not cost justifiable to put that road in now? my comments.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Nick Kelly, 3207 East Lindy Lane. My lot is right, if you look at that, it's on the right side, going up. of
Right where the
this-
proposed
where this
cul-de-sac-
proposed cul-de-sac goes. I know he talked to somebody who said it wouldn't be a big concern around traffic, but the way I see it from my property, I'm guaranteed to have those cars drive my house every single day. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and there are a lot of kids in that area. Anybody who wants to come home or leave is going to be driving right past my house every single day, and I think Doug did a nice job of getting into some of the other safety issues. The roads are not built, I don't know what the specifications say, but I know firsthand from living there that the roads are not necessarily wide enough to handle additional traffic, just anecdotally based on what I've seen. Drainage, I have we looked at some drainage pictures today, and I appreciate you guys coming out. There are issues across the back of the lot line there, and I do have, I also have letters here from 5 residents who are not able to attend due to the timing of this meeting, because it's over a holiday. I don't know, would it be okay for me
Yeah,
to
you can
read these?
submit them, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Read their names.
The first one is from Jim and Patty Scardino, 10353 South George Drive. So I can go ahead and read this.
I don't want you to read each letter.
Okay.
You're going to submit them to the record. I'm just going to have you read their names.
Okay, that's the first one. Jeff and Carrie Miro, 3236 East Lindy Lane. Dennis and Anna Darland, D-A-R-L-A-N-D. I apologize, I don't have an address for that one. John and Katie Ferguson, 3263 East James Drive. And Brian and Christy Peterson, they live 3 houses up from us on Lindy. But I want to express my concern over this project, and back to Desiree's point about, the cost of this development, I don't feel that's our burden to bear as far as what this development's going to cost. And we're not opposed to them building, but we want the entry to come in up from Elm. Thank you.
Excuse me, can I have copies of those letters?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for your comments. Come on up.
Hi, good evening. Donald Rask, 3246 East Lindy Lane. As stated before, we are not opposed to changing the zoning to residential for that entire area. However, this proposal as it sits isn't in fact an extension of the Oakwood Lake subdivision. If it's completely locked in and it's attached to our association, yet in the plan that was submitted, they stated that they don't want to pay HOA, homeowner association dues to Oakwood Lake, yet these 15 lots will have access to the lake, but they don't want to share in the liability that we carry. They don't want to share in the cost that we incur to maintain that property. As submitted, it is an extension of Oakwood Lakes Estate subdivision. This is not its own separate entity. If it was its own separate entity, the entrance would come in off of Elm, and they wouldn't have such ease of access to the remainder of the subdivision. And I second the concerns of my fellow neighbors in the traffic and safety issues. If this is planned for curb and gutter, that's, people are going to have sidewalks, they're going to be able to walk around. Our subdivision, once again, especially on our side, the south side, our culverts tend to be quite deep. There's no place for anybody to bail out except by jumping into a ditch. We're aware of those concerns, but new residents coming in may not take those issues as seriously as we do. So as submitted, I don't really agree with this plan. It's an extension of our subdivision, and it should be treated as such.
To the developer, why should we change the zoning if you are stating that you don't want these homes to be part of the Oakwood Estates subdivision, even though it's physically connected to the Oakwood Estates subdivision?
That was a question for me. If you could repeat, I would appreciate it.
You're asking us to change the zoning for that piece?
Correct.
That 15-home parcel, the cul-de-sac that comes off of that comes through Ricky Drive off of Lindy Lane. You're asking us to make that decision as Plan Commission, which in the past, this commission and council, previous commission and council have said they expect that to be residential. But at the same time, you're saying you want to physically make the connection to the neighborhood and enjoy the benefits of Oakwood Lake Estates, but not be part of the neighborhood association or whatever their association is called. Why is that?
We did not address that with the association. If that's something they want to explore, we'd be happy to do that. From what I understood, they didn't want us to be a part of their neighborhood, and we'd set up our own association, take care of our own pond, take care of our own property. That's something that we could explore with them.
Okay, so you're willing to do it. They've stated they don't want that to be part of it. At least whoever you talk to.
Correct.
Okay, come on up. Mr. Bouch?
3264 East Lindy Lane. I'm the president of Homeowners Association. For one, we were told that they did not want to be part of our association. They were going to be their own entity and be part of the other subdivision that's going to be developed in 4 to 5 years. With that being said, as you can see by looking at the diagram there, that technically they are part of us. I know Oak Creek is about unity and bike paths and everything, getting people around. Now, those people could go for a walk and go on our common area. I'll be the one having to call the police on them and say, hey, you can't be on it. Okay? So it is a huge liability for us. I do not see the reason why they cannot take that cul-de-sac, turn it, same way as Belinsky's, and run the road straight out to the south. They can still get the sewer and water from Ricky Drive. That shouldn't be an issue. I don't see why that would be an issue. It wouldn't be that far to connect on Elm. They will need to have a road to build this subdivision because they obviously won't be able to put all the construction traffic through our subdivision to build this. So they are going to have a road to get there one way or the other. To put a temporary road in, all they would need to do is asphalt to get that road completed. I do asphalt, so my company would gladly do it.
No commercials.
Another thing, this water issue, where they have the plan, the outfall, I don't know if you could show where they're building the retention pond. I don't know if you'd be able to highlight where that retention pond is going to be. Right through there. That is going to be like what's in front of like Deerfield. It'll be a pond that won't be manicured. It's just going to be sitting there with water. It won't be deep. The outflow pipe for that flows right into the wetlands. You can see where the wetlands are. If I can walk up there, I can show everybody. The wetlands are right here, okay? So it's going to be, this is going to fill up, and every time we get a flood, it is going to spill into the wetlands. This is the 15-inch pipe that we were talking to earlier that runs east-west. I believe it's right here. I think it's right here. We also have a 15-inch pipe that goes directly into our lake. So we've been draining through the years, all this wetland that's in here, every time it rains, as you know, we get filled up. And that'll actually get worse with this proposed connection. I've been talking to the city for years and years and years, have multiple meetings about the backup. I believe it does say in the city engineer that it will back up on a rare occasion. That is like a 100-year flood or whatever. We back up every single time it rains probably an inch or more. I've got multiple videos. I've had the previous mayor out to see that, watch the water flow in. I actually had a proposal where I did a digitized takeoff of our whole subdivision, showing that if we handle our own water, our pond, every time it rains an inch, I don't have it with me, but I think it was, we would only raise up 2.86 inches, I believe, if that's my memory. That's handling our own water at a total saturation of all the property. When it rains, as anybody knows, if it rains 3 inches, we go up a foot. If it rains, which was, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, it rained 6, 7 inches, it went up 2, 3 feet. We had houses that were sandbagged, okay? But what happens is, with our lake, like let's say it rains 3 inches and we go up 8. We can handle 8, we can handle 9, no problem. What happens is, and you go by these pipes, this water comes rushing in for days. When it quits raining, for the most part, our water level stops. We're not filling ourselves up much anymore, but we keep going up, 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 and up. Okay, now that we got raised up an extra foot from the rest of the Red River watershed, now we get another rain event. Our water that was supposed to take that area that just got filled up an extra foot, now we go through the roof. And that's why we sandbag. That's why we need to sandbag houses. So this is just going to add to the problem substantially by dumping more water into that same area and actually flooding those houses. We have issues, again, we have had pictures, we've had going around those corners. They are very dangerous. You know, there's many, many kids. At any given time, you can be, in the evening on the nice days, there are multiple people walking their kids and dogs and everything around that subdivision. These people aren't gonna, you know, they're just looking to get out of there. They're gonna drive through, they're gonna go right or left, and we have a heck enough time getting people to slow down the way it is without taking somebody who is not even part of our subdivision, doesn't wanna be, getting them to slow down. We have no control over them. I couldn't even send them an email and tell them to slow down. How are we gonna be united with these people when we need to tell them to slow down, tell them to get off our property? There's no way that that should connect to our subdivision. They need to find a way to get that in off of Elm. Thanks.
You got a question?
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, I kind of want to put this bit. First of all, the only thing we're talking about this evening is the rezoning from agricultural to RS2. But if we were to approve it, I don't think it's fair to the developer then, because if we listen to all these comments here, I personally would not agree to developing it so that it attaches to the subdivision, you know, to the north. So we could pass it tonight, but then the next time it comes to us with this proposal, we're probably gonna, or I would vote against it.
Just to speak to that, that is the process, right?
Yeah.
The questions that we're being asked as a plan commission is this an appropriate rezone request from agricultural to residential? All the other stuff, what happens next, all these folks, I would assume, since they're all here tonight, they would be here for that next meeting when an actual development proposal would be in front of them, and then we can make decisions based on that. But we certainly shouldn't try to read the future or say to the developer he has no right to request this, because it's a fair request. And as I said, precedent, both Plan Commission and Common Council has already said so. It is an appropriate request to make this residential.
Agreed.
The next step will determine whether or not it goes forward. And all these folks that are here tonight, I would expect them all to be here again to say those things, and then the commission can rule on that decision. I mean, there's been a few nuances in this discussion. One, the developer says he is open to connecting to the neighborhood as far as them being part of Oakwood Estates. That's one thing. The other big thing is where the water goes. The assistant city engineer is saying the water does not go into Oakwood Lake Estates. That's a big nuance that some of the residents are confused on. Yes, Steve?
Well, the way I look at it, if you approve this to get rezoned, you're basically going to be approving the connection, because they're not coming in with rezone and anything else, just that.
We're not
section. There's
talking
no-
about the
There's no other option.
Yeah, there's plenty of options.
Without them coming, well, what option? If they're not rezoning anything, in order to change anything to not connect to Ricky Drive, they'd have to come to rezone the rest of the property.
If they wanted to change, let's say if they wanted to change that road map, the next step for them would then be to request that south piece, the extreme south piece off of this black dotted line, would then also have to be, that may be their next step, if that's the way they decide to go. But we can't certainly say absolutely not based on what the question is, and that's, is it appropriate rezone? Okay. Yes, sir.
Don Rask, 3246 East Lindy. What would prevent them from abandoning this property once it's been accepted to be rezoned in this manner? Why, and maybe this is a question directed to you, why not apply for a rezone of the entire proposed area rather than just this one little section?
I think that
theoretically speaking, they could rezone this, build this subdivision as presented, provided it's approved, and never do anything with the remainder of that property. So to break this out as a single piece, rather than to rezone the whole subdivision as originally proposed a few years ago by Belinsky, doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And again, you can't hold a new developer to what Belinsky.
I understand that, but why not ask for a rezone of the whole area rather than
Question, we'll ask the developer. I believe I already answered it, but.
Yeah, it again comes down to the market that it's not ready to be developed at this point. There's definitely a possibility that south phase never does get developed, because we go into another recession in another 10 years, and who knows what happens. We have to bank on the market to come back to develop that. So at this point, again, it's premature to rezone it.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to move on this.
Mike Mecca, 10420 South Justin Drive. I would point out, as one of the original residents of Oakwood Lake Estates, that plan was submitted in 2 phases. They didn't develop very well to begin with, so they applied for a second and third phase, which the Planning Commission and the city approved, so they could develop it in a good fashion and retain their financial well-with, and it worked just fine. And it was all put in as one complete plan to begin with, so everybody knew where it was going.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Yes, sir.
Mike Whitman, 3140 East Lindy Lane.
One of the newest residents.
Very new. Being a new resident, we've had the opportunity to see the traffic pattern, the students or kids around the neighborhood. It is, I think, a severe safety issue. I would submit that I would prefer that this rezoning not be approved solely because it only allows the connectivity to Ricky Lane. I would prefer to see it rezoned or the zoning contingent on it being connected to Elm Lane. That's all I have to say.
Thanks for your comments. 2 more.
Good evening, Matt Hanchek, 10303 South George Drive. Just a couple comments. I don't wish to belabor the point that everyone's made with traffic and safety, but I do have to raise, I have 2 very young children currently learning to ride their bicycles on those very streets, walking across those streets with us to play with other children in the neighborhood, accessing the lake on our property. Some of the main things that actually led us to want to move to Oak Creek not long ago. With this, while certainly it's my responsibility as the parent to look out for their safety, my job just got infinitely harder if I've got a 20% increase to the traffic volume coming through this subdivision. I live right on the corner of one of the 2 entrances, and I'm basically going to have to accompany them until they're significantly older on every single trip they go to a neighbor's house with that volume of traffic. The other issue that I wanted to raise is the entire way that this has come about so far has been disingenuous. We've been looking at this plat map the entire time, asking for a rezone, and the only answer that we've received why they're not asking to rezone the entire property has been that it's not ready to develop. What does that have to do with rezoning the property right now? And there has not been an adequate answer to that question. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. All right, last one.
Doug Krimmer, 3170 East Lindy Lane. I did want to discuss a few things that Joe had brought up in his presentation. As Steve said, it was explicitly stated by Point Real Estate that they did not want to be part of our subdivision. Their plan has a walkway going to the future phases. We're just asking them to flip it around. I'd also like to address his statement that the 9.8 acres with the Belinsky plan, the development that was going to drain in the same direction. He may be correct with that. We didn't know it at that time. So just as they get a chance to redo the plan and not have to follow Belinsky's plan, that's not acceptable to us to have any water shed from the south side of the median between Oakwood and Elm to come north. That all of that watershed should go to the south to Elm. They should have to build up along that north edge and push it all south, which if they put a cul-de-sac connectivity with Oakwood Lake Estates, that would allow that all to happen, because that would be the high point. Right now, the high point is the cul-de-sac coming all the way back in our subdivision, flip it around, take it all to Elm. So, and then, as far as the markets and that, the markets go up and down, supply meets demand, and if now's not the time, now's not the time. So if they're not ready to develop the whole property, or at least propose the phases with which they could come in subsequent meetings, then maybe now's not the time. So maybe we shouldn't rezone it. Belinsky rezoned it, then it fell back into agricultural. So that's what happens. So the market demands what the market demands.
Thanks for your comments. Commissioner Johnston?
You can wait.
All right, Commissioner Chandler.
So just for clarity, what we would vote on today is just the rezoning, is not the actual layout identified, not the roads, not the house configuration or lot configurations.
Right.
It's just that area being rezoned. Is that
This
correct?
area right here, rezoned from agricultural A1 to RS2. That is the request that's before the Plan Commission.
And in subsequent meetings, follow-up meetings?
All of the
applicant-
details will follow. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Carrie, is there, sorry about that, is there a way we can mention on there that they can't go through and, Ricky, and create a,
Not at this stage. No, not with this request. That would come at the next stage of the next application.
All right, so as Carrie stated at the beginning, this is simply a request to rezone a parcel, a piece of a larger parcel from agricultural to residential. It doesn't preclude any of these people in this room from coming to the next meeting when the actual proposal comes forward and making the good arguments that you made tonight. You made some good arguments. All this does is change the zoning, doesn't advance the proposal, doesn't mean it's going to happen, doesn't mean homes are going to be built, doesn't mean road connections are going to be made. But this is how the process works, and the developer has followed how it's laid out. He's done everything the way the book says he should do it, and the way that our staff has directed him. So I certainly can't penalize him. I would definitely take the developer on his word that when he says that he is willing to think about having these homes be part of Oakwood Estates, since they will have the benefit, regardless of how this is connected, of that neighborhood. I mean, that's unquestioned. It's right there. I was out there this afternoon. It's right on the lake, essentially right across the street. So be open to that. Listen to all the concerns that you're hearing, because this is one of our premier neighborhoods in our city. No question. Been out there many times. We certainly want to protect that. Safety is always something that we have to consider as well. I used to be on traffic and safety. I think you have been on there. It's something that we care about. If you notice all the sidewalks we're putting in the city, that's one of the reasons we're doing that, is to keep people off the streets. But at the same time, there are neighborhoods that are built the way they're built. My neighborhood, one of the oldest neighborhoods in Oak Creek, has no sidewalks. Been like that since the 60s. So there are exceptions to these things. For our purposes, I'll leave it up to the commission to decide if they want to advance this. Again, for our purposes and for the audience purposes, all we're talking about is a rezone, not the development itself. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. That being said, what does the commission want to do?
That's a tough one.
You want to talk about it between yourselves more, you can certainly do that.
Well, I think it's a problem, but I think the developer has a point that we have to at least recognize what he requests. And if he takes it farther, then of course, then we can make our decision from that too. But right now, I think he does have a right to at least request rezoning for that piece of property.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree with Fred that he is within his own right to request that rezoning. And I think he's heard enough tonight to know that when it comes back here, pretty much what the answer is going to be in the future. And we have listened to the residents, and I know what my decision would be, but I think he does have the right to for us to rezone this area.
but on the flip side, if we're all kind of thinking maybe, just maybe, it's probably not going to work with the connection to Ricky, why would we go through this? And if it went this way, I would not support it going forward.
And you'll certainly have that option.
Yeah. Are you telling me that you would vote against it, the rezoning?
If we're rezoning like this and the connectivity from.
No, that's not part of it. The connectivity is not part of it.
The layout isn't what
How do you get out of the subdivision if you don't?
He ain't got a subdivision yet. All he's got is a piece of land.
It's a piece of land.
Yep.
That's the problem we got.
Separated.
Right.
The two are different.
Right.
And he still may end up going south when he comes because he
All right.
deals with the neighborhood.
Someone make a motion.
Thanks. Johnson moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that portions of the properties at 3110, 3260, and 3300 East Elm Road be rezoned from A1 agricultural to RS2 single-family residential after a public hearing.
Dickman seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Graffiti, aye.
Guzekowski, no.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
That 5-1.
Yes.
All right. You all have,
You know where we're
you're all noticed that what's going to happen next is they're going to come forward at some point with a plan. I don't know what that timeline is. You might want to share with with some of these folks after we move on when that's going to be. Yes, sir.
Don Rask, 3246 East Lindy. I respectfully request that the city notify all residents in the Oakwood Lake Estates subdivision as well as the Shangri-La subdivision when the proposed plan comes forward, rather than just the 300-foot radius as previously described.
Okay. We'll note the request. Thank you.
I think the alderman can request that also.
Right. Okay. Cards up here. If you have any questions or other comments, you can certainly track me down. All of us are always available. I hear what you're saying, but we do have to follow the process. Have a good night. All right, moving forward, 5B. Well, we actually got applause. We never get applause. 5B is a plan review, site plan submitted by Ken Patel, Raghav Hospitality LLC for relocation of the dumpster enclosure and expansion to the parking lot on the Mainstay Suites property at 1001 West College Avenue, tax key number 717-9004. And the applicant is here? Yes. Carrie? Well, let's, you know what, let's take a 2-minute recess. I gotta get a drink of water.
Sure. Yeah, I'm gonna let some water out. He can take it.
Warm it up.
Has to pass common council. It has common council, and they could say, well, you gave us permission to develop this without letting develop it. And the Court of Appeals is very strict process that says you have to only follow law. You can't, like everyone coming up and testifying, they're allowed. It has nothing to do with, well, I don't like it because it only.
Okay.
On ours, they are saying two things. Shall we keep it separate?
That was nothing.
Yeah, we've already, this is all we're doing.
Discussions on things.
Okay. They read the two things of expansion of the parking lot.
Oh, did they, if they talk, we'll just say, at this time, we're not asking for that. I'll let them know.
Okay. I mean, if they want to cover both of them at the same time.
We don't have enough, well, yeah, I mean, we could talk about it. The main thing is we want to get the dumpster.
Yes. The priority is that, we can always mention that we want to have it down the line because sometimes the reason why there's trucks and everybody backing into this dumpster, that's why it got broke, because they don't have enough room to park the large-sized trucks. And that's the reason why we want to move the dumpster from this side of the building.
I haven't gotten it.
From this area, because the dump truck coming in here, and sometimes it's just really hard for them to pick up the thing because of the cars parked up there. Yeah. So would it be easier, like if they can come straight and take it out?
you're,
You don't follow your...
you don't follow the set because you have no reason not.
Okay, we're back on camera. We are back together. Applicant is here for 5B. I already stated it's a site plan review. Carrie, what do you have for us?
This is an application request to relocate the dumpster and enclosure and expand the parking lot on the property that is highlighted in red. And this is what the proposed site plan is, and this is showing existing conditions on the property. So you can see that the parking lot currently ends right here, and the dumpster enclosure is right here. So the proposal is to expand the parking lot south here and relocate that dumpster enclosure to this part of the parking lot here. The enclosure would have a new concrete pad, and the details for the enclosure are on the screen before you. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can get a better idea of what it is. 2x4 treated wood framing with concrete fiber cement lap siding, brick piers with concrete block structure, which will match the existing building, and a fully opaque wood gate fence to face the parking lot would constitute the dumpster enclosure materials. I go back to the site plan here. The additional spaces for automobiles, which would increase by 3, and larger vehicles, which would increase to 12. So these look like larger spaces down on this side here.
That truck parking?
Yeah, truck camper.
You currently have truck parking on there? On your property?
Not a dedicated one. If some guest brings like a big vehicle or a construction vehicle, they just overlap whatever the open parking spot is.
Can you just identify yourself for the record? Name and address?
My name is Ken Patel, and I'm a part owner of the building and business as well.
And your physical address?
1001 West College Avenue,
Okay.
Oak Creek, Wisconsin.
Okay, so currently your existing parking lot does not have designated truck parking, but trucks parked there. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the section of code 171010B requires that all public off-street parking lots which serve 5 or more vehicles created or extended after July 6, 1999 shall be provided with accessory landscape areas. So basically what we're saying is we need to have some kind of landscaping to go along with this, so a landscape plan. There is a code requirement for a certain amount of the pavement that has to have some kind of landscaping in it. It's 5% actually. The 12 oversized vehicle parking spaces on the south side here should be limited only to the short-term parking of buses and vehicles affiliated with registered guests of the hotel. That's basically just saying, you know, we're not looking for this to become a truck stop. It needs to be short-term parking. Parking in the center, right here, may not be located further east due to the presence of wetlands and a pond, and there's some floodplain on this part of the property here. And the staff has provided the comments to the applicant with regard to stormwater requirements on the property. The staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Ken Patel, Raghav, am I saying that right?
Yes,
okay, Raghav Hospitality LLC for the property at 1001 West College Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 4. Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Dickman.
Okay, I was glad to see those parking spaces for large vehicles added because I do see a lot of, not a lot, but quite a few of the large buses there. You know, traveling groups, you know, musicianal groups, and they usually are parked out closer to the road, so this will put them back farther on the piece of property. So I think it's a very good idea. Okay.
Okay. Other questions? So Carrie, in your mind, this is an improvement for at least for that storage area for the garbage? That's an improvement over what's there now?
An improvement over where it is now. I think that the reason it's being relocated is partially due to wanting to increase the parking, and also I think it's easier access for the trucks to get to it, is my understanding.
Any concern that we're going to now see it on 13th Street, which has been all that part been redone? Yeah, that's the redone part.
Well, there's, if I go back to the.
Yeah, I know it's enclosed, but.
No,
There's nothing there now, right?
There's a parking lot.
Yeah, but now there'll be an enclosure over there.
Right.
Fairly
So-
close to the road.
So this is the property line, this is approximately where it would go, so I don't think you'll really be able to see it from
set back
13th
pretty
Street.
far.
All right. Any other questions? I think the biggest concern over those long-term parkers, it becomes issues with trucks and truck drivers just hanging out and getting in trouble, much like we deal with in the southern part of the city. So that would be a main concern, but we're certainly going to handle that with enforcement. I know you've been good partners on that as well.
Yes, sir. And I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I'll make sure that, that does not happen. I stay on site all the time, working 17 hours a day, try to make living on this. So I'll make sure, I won't run into trouble with this truck thing or anything.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Motion?
Dickman makes a motion, the Plan Commission approve the site and building plans submitted by Ken Patel, Raghav Hospitality LLC for their property at 1001 West College Avenue, subject to the following four conditions. Number one, that all building and fire codes are met. Two, that the detailed stormwater grading plans are submitted for approval by the engineering department prior to issuance of permits, that a detailed landscaping plan is approved by the Director of Community Development prior to the issuance of permit, and number four, that parking within the lot is restricted to vehicles, parentheses, including buses, of registered guests occupying the hotel.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Scavidi, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, items 5C is a conditional use request submitted by Lay Berlin Quick Trip, Inc. for a condition use for a gasoline service station for property at 7880 South 10th Street, tax key number 783-9073. Applicant is here, or applicant's rep, yep. Carrie?
This application is for a new gas station with convenience store, diesel pumps, and CNG, which are all conditional uses in the M1 district. According to the comprehensive plan, this would be an area for industrial, but we believe that it is compatible with the surrounding industrial properties. The site plan, conceptual at this point, and unfortunately it's a little washed out, but gives you an opportunity to see what the layout is proposed to be at this point. 6558 square foot convenience store with 5 rows of gasoline pumps and 4 rows of diesel pumps. CNG is actually proposed here at this point, working with the applicant to make sure that setbacks are met. We're trying to figure out a configuration that would be compliant with local requirements, and we'll continue to work with the applicant on that. Proposed hours of operation are 24/7. There was a request for some outdoor display areas along with the conditional use for the gas station itself, along the storefront and at the ends of the fueling canopy islands. My understanding is that the request for the video rental kiosk is no longer requested at this point. A propane cage and firewood display also along the front sidewalk adjacent to the store. 2 ice machines would be located along the delivery side of the building. Water softener salt is what is proposed to be at the end of the fueling canopies. Staff has expressed some concerns with these requests with the applicant, recommending to the Plan Commission approval of the outdoor display of propane cages and ice machines. Video rental kiosks, just for the record, are not allowed outside of the building, so that request has actually been withdrawn. If the commission agrees that the conditional use is appropriate for this location, staff will prepare conditions and restrictions for review at the December 9th Plan Commission meeting. The staff recommendation on the proposal is that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit allowing a gasoline service station located at 7880 South 10th Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the commission at the next meeting on December 9th. Mr. Mayor.
Outstanding company. I know that people love the Quick Trip location on Ryan and 13th Street. I think you've picked a good spot since it's the new entryway to downtown to and from. I'm sure we can work out the setback issues, hopefully.
We're continuing to work on that.
That's good. Good dialogue, good communication. Commissioner Chandler.
Are there any challenges or conflicts with the other gas stations that are in close proximity? I'm thinking of specifically Meyer. Isn't that pretty close to there?
It's further down Drexel and on Howell itself.
Okay, so there are.
Well, it's 10 blocks away.
Is that how many blocks it is?
Well, this is on 10th, and that's on Howell, so.
It's 10 blocks away.
Plus.
So no
10 plus 1, because you got to go south 1 block.
Okay.
11 blocks.
All joking aside, the market analysis is probably better, a question better answered by the applicant.
Yeah.
Well, come on up and tell us why you want to be in that spot.
Leah Berlin, I'm the representative for Quick Trip, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin. I do not select sites. I actually work in engineering. So if you want to discuss market analysis, you would have to call back to our real estate department. But my general understanding is that it fits in the scope of what we've looked at for the community. Close in the industrial park is helpful for the compressed natural gas portion and for the diesel portion. So that's one of the reasons that site was selected.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
One other.
Oh, who had the mic? You had the mic. Okay. Who asked the first question? You?
Yeah, that was
Okay,
me.
You got it then.
Are there any specific rules for outdoor displays? I know there was a recommendation for not as many.
Outdoor display of merchandise is actually a conditional use. The amount of outdoor display is what was the concern for staff because there was a lot of requests. We are recommending approval for the outdoor storage for the ice machines and for the propane because those are pretty much standard at all gas stations. Not entirely hip on the storage of salt at the end of the canopies or underneath the canopies. And then the firewood display, which would be on the sidewalk in front of the store. So those are the items that would be for the Plan Commission's consideration.
Thank you.
Could I address that comment?
Uh-huh.
For clarification, this is the exact same amount of outside merchandising that we have at our other location. And I did call down to that store just to confirm that there haven't been any concerns with the city or any complaints with any of the outdoor storage. So we're not asking for anything additional here. We're just asking for the same amount and the same items that we have currently at the existing store.
Yeah, I would say we're extra sensitive about that location given where it is on the new entry to the city. We're certainly not going to ask you to do anything that you're not doing at the other store. But we will ask you to think about ways to screen it or not have it highly visible. So, and I'm sure you're willing to accommodate those requests. Commissioner Dickman.
Okay, those items are also outside the PDQ gas station on 27th and College. But also I want to talk, I was a little surprised, Carrie, at the comment that video rental kiosks are not allowed outside of buildings when the Pick and Save store right there on 27th and College has them.
That one is actually not approved.
And yet they have it there?
It's in violation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just got them in trouble.
Yeah.
I'm sure they appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
And as far as other fueling stations in the area, we'd have to go back and look on a case-by-case basis whether or not they actually received approval for their outdoor storage as well. I know there have been some instances where it has been an issue. One of the close-by gas stations was had an issue within the past year about storing mulch outside, and it turned into it was a huge amount of outdoor storage that was not approved. So
Pallets and pallets of mulch, which we
pallets
didn't
and pallets
want.
of mulch. So that's where the concern with outdoor display is coming into play here.
Okay. Mr. Seibert.
Have you talked to any of the residents south of Drexel? The
No,
residential?
not personally, I haven't,
Get
no.
their opinion or what they feel about it?
South?
Other questions?
I would say that Quick Trip has been a great community citizen there in my district. There's never a time I go there where it's not clean and very kept up. So my hat's off to them. I look forward to them going down here. My concern is the mesh between what's going to be happening with Drexel Town Square, and I'm sure Quick Trip has their own standard branding. Do those two mesh well enough, and how it's going to look going into Drexel Town Square is my only thought.
I think it's far enough away.
Yeah.
It's on the other side.
Other side of the railroad.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Abutment, you
because-
can't see it.
Yeah, just because of that. That's
And again, knowing what they do on Ryan and 13th, they keep up their facilities.
They do.
Inside and out. Commissioner Johnson.
I don't have any issues with the conditional use. Just for a side comment, just the site plan layout. Something to consider is I foresee that 10th Street and Drexel is going to be a signalized intersection. If there's any way we can pull that south entrance to the north, would be beneficial for that functioning of that signal in the future.
Oh, to get away from the signal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a strong possibility based on traffic that will be signalized.
Okay, that's helpful information.
Yeah, because doing something at the design stage will save you a lot of grief down the road, and staff certainly can help you on that.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say, Carrie? Oh, you need Barb. Commissioner Chandler?
I notice you'll also have natural gas there.
Correct.
So is there anything different that has to be included from the perspective of the fire department?
This would be our third CNG location in the city, and working with the 13th Street location, Quick Trip, as far as their CNG implementation process, it was very smooth. This is regulated by the state of Wisconsin also for the tanks and the installation, and speaking, certainly from that past experience, it went very well. Quick Trip was more than willing to offer us training and work with us during all phases, including the design. So as far as special requirements, we don't anticipate any. We are planning that this will go as smooth as the last install.
Thank you.
Other questions? The applicant have anything else?
No.
All right, then a motion?
Johnston moves that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the Common Council approves a conditional use permit, a gasoline station, service station, goodness, located at 7880 South 10th Street after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that were prepared for the commission at the next meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call?
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Scafidi, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the drive down from La Crosse. All right, moving forward. 5D is a plan review, site plan submitted by Doug Pellock, Marcus Theater Corp. For building facade modifications to the existing building, the property at 7241 South 13th Street, tax key number 763-9018. Applicant here. Perfect. Carrie?
Okay, this is an application for the Marcus South Shore Theater. If you know where that is, it's right there. Highlighted in red on your screen, it's off of 13th Street. So what the application is for before you is site plan review for facade modifications to include painting the exterior brick, adding wall sconces on the north and east elevations, changing the north elevation entry tower so that it is squared off and reducing the number of signs on that tower from 3 to 1. Poster case displays will be modified to match the exterior building materials. 6 areas for display of movie scenes and cinema decor are also included on here. Those are going to be on the...
No, those have been removed.
What's that?
Those have been removed.
Those have been removed. I strike that from my comments.
Which one was that?
Signs are not part of this review, so basically it's just the facade modifications to include the tower and the paint and
Light fixtures.
and the light fixtures. Thank you. So the staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission approves the building plans for Marcus South Shore Cinema for the property at 7241 South 13th Street, and that the proposed signs are not part of the approval. Mr. Mayor.
Did the applicant have anything they wanted to say?
I think she pretty well covered it.
All right.
If there's any questions, we're here to answer them.
Let's see, Carrie, what was being removed? I'm sorry, I missed that.
There were going to be 6 areas for display of movie scenes or cinema decor on the facade. When staff met with the applicant and the consultant, we kind of explained that those might be considered, excuse me,
Additional
signs if they didn't put something other than basic iconic movie scenes without advertising. So now those areas have actually been removed.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
We do have one change. The bottom elevation, we've got the wrong color on there. It should be the light beige like the rest of the elevations are. So that'll be the only change to the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Chandler?
So going back to the displays that have been removed, which area is it? The top?
If I can
elevation?
approach, I can show you where they'd be.
Okay.
There's a pointer on there.
You just have to turn it on the left-hand side.
Left-hand side, there we go.
Okay. Originally, this panel, this, and there's another one over here, were to have a large format movie mural. And we couldn't decide what they were supposed to be and whether they were going to be signage. With a big volume like that, they wanted to put movie posters up there. Movie posters for coming attractions was what half the group wanted. And then artwork was what the other half. They finally decided, let's just get rid of it because they couldn't decide at corporate which way to go. So we just took it off the plans altogether.
So the entire square, the dark square? will be
This
removed?
is currently, this square is a pattern in the block wall.
Okay.
So we're painting the decorative pattern one color, painting the field a second color. Inside that was going to be another large frame, like 12 foot by 20 feet, and it would be some type of element, whether that was going to be advertising for their $5 Tuesday, whether it was going to be a big poster case for the coming Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, or whether it was going to be a classic traditional artwork. They decided just not to put anything on there.
Okay.
So we removed it from the plan.
Okay. So the way that it looks now is the way that it will be in the future?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Was this in tandem with a interior renovation?
The building is currently being retrofitted for the Dream Loungers.
Yeah, what's that about?
Basically, it's a lazy boy inside the auditorium. Reclining seats, love seats tied together, electronic motors, so you can, and then basically we cut the auditorium count down in half. So we have half as many seats in the building, so we get more customers come into the building that way.
Nice. Any other questions?
When's
Looks good.
I was just going to say, when is this all going to be completed?
Completion date. Mr. Pellick, would you like to answer that one? We are currently retrofitting the seats. The auditoriums are under construction right now. The interior lobby and hallway is out for bid right now. The exterior, if we get it approved, we'd like to get it in conjunction with that. Obviously, we're not going to paint the building until the spring. So the exterior work really can't be done until the springtime. The lobby, we're looking to start construction of that after the holidays, so that probably by spring, that should be completed. But the auditoriums, some of them will be completed before Christmas.
Thank you.
So does that main entrance that exists currently, that is going to have a different feel to it? It will have steps, and is that what I'm seeing there?
No, the,
Oh, that's the side entrance. Okay, yeah, I got it.
yeah, the main entrance is right here. This is the east side, which already has the ramps and the staircase up. Those are the emergency exit doors out the end of the corridor.
All right, so
The entrance,
you're jazzing up the tower a little bit there.
we're cutting off all the scallops and putting in an Art Deco decor to it. And then these walls are already there, the poster case walls. We're going to redecor them to tie in with the Art Deco theme.
Okay.
Get rid of that gingerbread look from the past and give it a little more Art Deco. The inside's going to be completely renovated with that look too.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Motion?
Seifert moves that the Planning Commission approves the building plans for Marcus South Shore Cinema for the property at 7241 South 13th Street, and that the proposed signs are not part of this approval.
There are no signs now, are there? Could that be knocked out? The proposed signs? Okay.
Do you have a
Dickman will second.
Dickman seconds, roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Carrillo, aye.
Scafidi, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
All right, have fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last item is a plan review of site and building plans submitted by Randy Swain and Josh Couch, Loves Corp. For building modifications in addition to the existing tire shop building on the property at 9650 South 20th Street, tax key number 904-9000.
I will ask for the Plan Commission's indulgence for just a few minutes. We have some technology issues to address. We are going to be Skyping with the applicant as well as calling in.
Wow.
And they have just submitted some additional graphics. So if you'll bear with me, I will be right back.
Technology. Ooh. We're still on mic, and we're still on mic and camera.
Advanced on this.
I don't think it's right eating in front of us.
No kidding. Can we do it this way, Al?
Yeah. For the zone.
How did it feel being on the other side?
That was weird.
That was a weird feeling.
It seems kind of,
We should have asked you a lot of embarrassing questions, but we didn't do it.
we went from applause to nothing. I feel like, what did we do? What did we do to offend them? Did I say something?
I know where they're coming from.
No, but you know.
Auditory. Well, that's
That weird gingerbread kind of.
That's the problem.
I'm afraid he's doing something else.
Also, you know,
Going back.
our ordinance says, on a cul-de-sac, you can develop 15 buildable lots. And you notice he hit 15 right on the head. So he's getting maximum,
That's just my opinion now.
you know.
Fire department may be different, but I don't know how Mike can connect. This isn't part of the rules. And those two,
That they are complaining now.
I'm a little stickler for detail.
I've been 20 years.
Where is the applicant joining us from?
I miss Dancing with the Stars tonight. My wife is into that. I watched a little last night, you know, and I've seen it often, and I haven't followed it.
I am not happy about the
Tonight was supposed to be final conclusion.
When they all say. Is it the dance? What are they doing?
I don't know, they have one dance or something.
You gotta go to the high school. Food drive.
I don't know, it's.
It's a game.
Did she record it?
Oh, we did.
I don't know.
This gave us an occupancy permit.
So she's gonna have to fill you in.
If anyone's watching at home, we're actually Skyping with the applicant for agenda item 5E.
Okay.
And talking to Josh Couch.
Yes.
Welcome.
Josh, we should see you in just a few minutes.
Oh, there it is. Click here to accept it. And Carrie, I never did get, never did get the email attachment.
I think we got it.
And I'll advise the applicant that your comments are being broadcast on local TV as part of our regular Plan Commission broadcast. Just so you're aware of that. All right, we can see you, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little bit of feedback, but other than that, everything's good.
Okay.
You want to turn down the volume just a little bit? There we go. Okay, so this is a plan review for Love's on 20th Street. The request, I apologize that this is kind of washed out, but the request is for 4 15 by 20 corner additions to the existing tire shop building. All setback requirements will be met post-construction. This gives you a layout of the existing and proposed building. Fiber cement panels are going to be used on the additions. The existing building has been constructed using split-face concrete block to match the existing primary building on the structure. The use of cement fiber panels, according to Section 17-1009A2, requires a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission. However, there is a recommendation that the building materials for the addition match the existing building. And we actually have an updated color rendering for you, hot off the presses, if you will. I apologize.
No problem.
Oops. Okay, so Josh, I'm pulling up image 1 of 2 if you want to talk about that. Hang on just a second. Hang on, Josh. We can't really hear you. Can you
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that's good.
I did put in a couple pictures of the existing buildings for anyone that's not familiar with the existing structure and what's going on there. The original building was constructed some years ago, and the original design was simply not to close the mechanic bay. What we've learned is from our customers that there's some additional wheel end repairs that need to be done, and also there's some other reasons for, on crew member safety, to enclose those bays. The first thing we do is we send these designs off to our metal building manufacturer, and they were giving us the recommendation that it's their opinion, their professional design opinion, that the existing cantilever canopy rafter nor the existing key strut are sufficient to provide support for the full height masonry wall and provide the necessary stiffness for support. So that's when we decided we had to do some kind of design changes, and that's where the Nietzsche Hall fiber cement panels came in. They allowed those design conditions and the structural numbers to work out. So that's the only reason really we're trying to go to the fiber cement panels, is because the existing structure that's there now will not accommodate those additional design things. And forgive me for not being educated enough on the structural calculations to give you more information, but I did attach the email from my metal building manufacturer that did describe those options. Now, there is a possibility to go to this split face B&U, but it's very expensive to do the retrofit facility.
Josh, we're getting a little bit of interference. Are you getting a beeping noise on your end?
Yes.
It stopped.
Okay. So, and I know, Gary, I know I've flipped through some old emails from the architect back and forth with you guys, and they were saying that, the reason for the fiber cement panels were to allow additional clearance for the truck to minimize any repair or replacement panels that had to be done in the future. That's a small concern of ours. It's not the driven factor behind the fiber cement panels. So what we'd like to do is try to incorporate them more as an architectural accent piece rather than trying to match the existing building exactly. There's not a product out there that will match exactly. So, and then if you go through that very first, the one of two, Gary, that I sent you, the first three are like I put in the photos. The fourth one is that color render. That's an actual Nietzsche Hall brand product, color match on it, the elevation. You can see the difference in the split face B&U and the Nietzsche Hall panel.
So that's what it's going to look like when they're done?
That doesn't show the overhead doors, but
Right, so this is the latest updated rendering showing the construction materials as he was describing.
Okay.
Was there an email he said he sent you, Carrie?
That's what these images are.
Oh, that's what this is? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Josh, I'm opening up your email 2 of 2.
that's going to start with, we'll go back to the first one. We only went through the first four. I think there's 6 sheets on that first one.
Okay. The next sheet is your email.
The next one is the email from Delvin Warner. He's actually with Boothby Group. He's our metal building manufacturer. This was back before you guys probably ever saw him explain on what his recommendations were for us to provide a safe building for the public use on our school. There's a couple options there. Like I said, the first option we said was to do a design reinforced freestanding masonry wall. Further investigation is going to require us to do a
Okay.
And to be completely honest with you, if we can't get approval for the DG numbers wise, it probably just doesn't make sense for us to continue with the expansion or the enclosure of the budget just due to dollar things.
And what was that last part? If
Yeah,
we
did-
can't get approval for, what was that?
Josh, if I may, we had a little bit of interference. So if we heard you correctly, you said if you were not allowed to have the cement fiber panels, that you would not be able to move forward with the addition.
Well, currently, I would have to go up to upper management. My budget for the project would not accommodate those kind of expenses for the portal frame and also for the BNU exterior construction.
Okay.
It's about $125,000 to $150,000 difference just with the portal frame versus.
Commissioner Chandler, do you have a question? Or is that it?
I did. No, I had an additional one.
Okay.
I missed the part where you said the functionality of these 4 structures. What happens under these structures?
The original intent when they built these shops were just for tire changing and tire sales only. We've come to realize from our customers that there's additional demand for wheel-in repairs, wheel assemblies, wheel hubs, DOT safety inspection items are one of the big things. And we've learned with the number of customers, trucks that we're seeing on a daily basis that it's not just a summertime trend with tires as they will be. When they start these wheel-in repairs, we get into more of a year-round service. So it's a safety factor for us to close those bays so our employees and our customers aren't out in the elements working. So wind-driven rain, something's blowing in, wind-driven snow's not a problem. It's just a better environment for mainly our crew members and of course our customers.
So is this replacing an existing structure, or all
No.
these activities happen outside?
No, if you go back, Harry, if you go back to those, couple of pictures on that first attachment, you'll see that that building is completely open air canopy. It's just a cantilever frame for wind wall there.
Mhm.
It's enclosing a service area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're just making them garages rather than just lean-tos.
And basically trucks, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also when we do the enclosure, it allows us to have more light in there at night where we're not putting out so much light pollution to our neighbors. It also acts as a noise dampening device where we're not having noise pollution as well. There's a lot of things that it helps with, but the main thing is our employees and crew member safety.
So now that it's enclosed, does that area need heat and AC and sprinklers? What's required for an enclosed service area?
Mechanical totally requires us for ventilation, and that will be something that's done, is there will be mechanical ventilation, there will be wall-mounted prop fans and roofers. There will be motorized to open and close as needed, also CO2 backup, for any monoxide that may accumulate if the switch wasn't turned on to the fan. The fire sprinkler is code-by-code basis, our tire storage volume doesn't change. Haven't seen one yet, we've done this across the board, haven't seen one that had to sprinkle with the addition of the enclosures. The roof area is still there, the square footage of our workspace stays the same. There are some states that we have had to sprinkle the entire building when we built it, but just with the enclosures of the canopies, I haven't had one yet that's code-wise, where NFPA requires that.
Mike, you have any comments?
Yeah, he's definitely correct in stating that when that building was constructed, they would have looked at the code requirements for it, because the overhang of the roof would be counted, even though that is a bit of a lean-to type structure, would be counted as the requirement for the sprinkler. I would certainly encourage them to contact me and see how this fits into our local ordinances, which define what a service garage is and the sprinkler requirements for a service garage. Those may be more stringent than the NFPA standards. That's something we should talk about early on in the project.
And that's where we run into a whole lot. It's really not a service garage with a oil change pit.
Yeah, that's something we certainly can discuss. You know, our ordinance references very closely to a service garage in a broad sense. So, but that's something we can discuss.
Any other questions?
Sounds good.
All right.
Just to give you a little bit more information, the site plan didn't really pull up very clearly, unfortunately, when I brought it up earlier. It's a little bit washed out, so maybe if I zoom in a little more. The proposed location, well, this isn't much better, but proposed location is east of the existing diesel fuel canopy. So basically, if we're looking at an orientation, up here is the freeway on-ramp, and below here, this is where the diesel canopy is, and then 20th Street is even further down. So the proposed location, you're not really going to see it a whole lot from 20th Street, and the fact that they're enclosing the existing bays, it doesn't require any additional landscaping or anything like that. It's in the middle of a parking lot, so that would be extremely difficult to put in landscaping surrounding that building, so landscaping is not necessary. The existing stockade fence that's on the east is also going to remain to screen the compressor and storage area. So there's basically, the additions are enclosing what's already there, and the existing screening that they have will remain. And then the staff recommendation for this project is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Randy Swain and Josh Couchloves Corporation for the property at 9650 South 20th Street, subject to conditions 1 and 2. Mr. Mayor.
All right, so unless there's any questions, other questions, I just need a motion.
I have one
Go ahead.
additional question. Is there any new or additional equipment that will be added to the area?
No, just the building structure itself and lighting and mechanical equipment as needed.
Josh, if you could repeat that, we had a bit of interference.
No additional equipment, just additional lighting inside the enclosure and also the mechanical exhaust system that we spoke about.
What was the last part? Additional lighting and?
Exhaust
Inside.
fans,
Mechanical exhaust
And-
system.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Thank you.
because you're enclosing it.
And also, Carrie, if you could go to that attachment number 2,
Yes.
I also put on the Google Street View so you guys can see. I don't know if aesthetics is anything about the building material.
Well, we're currently looking at those visuals right now.
Okay, the page number 3 shows if you're southbound on 94, you exit there at, I don't know the cross street, on Ryan Road.
So this is actually the location right here as you're entering the freeway.
Yeah, so you see the shop there just to the left-hand side of the existing Denny's, just on the north side of our store. You can just barely see it through there.
All right, anything else?
And then if you go to the next one, you'll see, if you're southbound on Thompsonian, looking in between the diesel canopy and the C-store, you'll see the shop there in the background as well. And then if you go to the next picture, that's gonna be southbound on-ramp on 94. You do see the north side of the shop. Those are about the clearest pictures you can see,
Commissioner Siepert,
Is there any signage that's going to be on this building?
any additional signage, Josh?
No, I've gotten with the architects, and obviously, we had thrown on a tire frame since the incorporation of the building material. So that's something we are gonna pursue, but that's gonna be handled under the first, middle, and later day. Our sign manufacturers and installers will come to you guys for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Dickman?
Kerry, if it said that the original building was built with the cement fiber panels, so if we say, if number 2 says the addition matches the existing, so in order for them to match it, that's where we have to have the 3/4 majority?
The original building was constructed of split face concrete block to match the main building, so this building here.
Okay.
The cement fiber panels are what require a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission.
Okay,
And that's what they're proposing to use for the enclosure.
okay.
Anything else? Motion on 5E.
Guzekowski will make a motion that the Plan Commission approve the site and building plan submitted by Randy Swain and Josh Couch, Loves Corporation, for the property of 8650 South 20th Street following, subject to the following conditions. One, that the building and fire codes are met, and two, that the addition matches the existing building materials.
We don't need number two.
You want number 2?
You asking to, you don't want, we're not asking them to match, correct?
No.
Excluding 2.
Excluding number 2.
Yeah.
So just that all
Including
building and fire
number
codes
1.
are met.
Yeah. Well, that's an important one, and
Yes.
Mike will work with the applicant on that one.
Correct.
Okay,
Chandler, second.
roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Scafidi, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank
All
you
right.
for helping us out there, Josh, with the technology issues.
Well, I apologize once again for the late notice on the meeting. I would have been happy to be there. I got a letter on my desk Monday morning.
All right, next time you gotta bring donuts.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 8:12.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Dickman, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Scafidi, certainly.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Tuesday. Common Council? I think so. Well, if we're not here, it'll be the next week.
Happy
Have a good night.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah.